Motivation is often seen as the starting point for change. When motivation is high, starting feels easy. Effort feels lighter. Resistance almost disappears. This creates a powerful assumption. If motivation can be maintained, consistency will follow. But motivation rarely stays. It rises and falls with mood, energy, stress, and life circumstances. When motivation fades, progress often fades with it. And this leads to a familiar question. Why does change feel so difficult to sustain? Motivation is emotional. It responds to how things feel in the moment. When life feels manageable, motivation feels available. When life becomes demanding, motivation disappears first. This explains why habits often collapse during stressful periods, travel, scheduled changes, or increased responsibilities. The issue is not effort or intent. The issue is that motivation is situational. Any system that depends on motivation alone inherits that instability. Motivation is commonly treated as the cause of action. But in practice, motivation frequently appears after action begins. Small actions reduce resistance. Reduced resistance makes continuation easier. Momentum creates emotional reinforcement. This reverses the usual assumption. Instead of motivation leads to action, the pattern often looks like action leads to momentum, which leads to motivation. Waiting for motivation delays the very process that generates it. This is why starting small matters, not because small actions are impressive, but because they make starting possible. Motivation performs best in stable environments. But real life is rarely stable. When routines break, when environments change, when responsibilities increase, habit cues disappear. Without cues, motivation has nothing to attach to. This is why consistency often vanishes during life transitions. Nothing internal has failed. The structure that supported the behavior is no longer present. Motivation alone cannot compensate for missing structure. Sustainable habits are not driven primarily by outcomes. They are reinforced by identity. When a behavior aligns with identity, it requires less emotional effort. Instead of repeated negotiation, should this be done today? The behavior becomes an expression of what feels normal. This reduces friction. Motivation negotiates. Identity stabilizes. When habits reinforce identity, consistency becomes less dependent on emotional states. Motivation relies on decision-making. Systems reduce the need for decisions. A system determines when an action occurs, where it occurs, and how much effort it requires. When decisions are removed, behavior becomes predictable. This is why disciplined behavior often appears effortless. Not because motivation is constant, but because the environment supports the desired action. Progress becomes a function of design, not emotion. Consider two approaches to building a habit. One depends on feeling motivated. Action happens inconsistently. Momentum resets frequently. The other removes choice. The same time, the same context, minimal variation. Over time, the difference becomes visible. Not in intensity, not in passion, but in reliability. Consistency emerges from structure. This perspective removes a common source of frustration. The struggle is no longer framed as a personal failure. Instead, attention shifts to design. Environment cues friction systems. The question changes from, "Why can't motivation be sustained?" to, "What would continue working when motivation is low?" This shift alone simplifies change. Motivation is powerful but unstable. Lasting habits depend less on emotional drive and more on structure. Small actions create momentum. Identity reinforces consistency. Systems reduce reliance on willpower. When consistency is designed, motivation becomes less critical and more reliable. Many of these ideas are explored in greater depth in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. For those who want to explore the ideas further, the book is linked below.